Jeremiah, the prophet, was, like me, a young boy at one time. His father was a respected rabbi. Probably his father was a rabbi before him, and probably before him, his father was a rabbi. And I suspect Jeremiah had a good life because his father had an honored occupation. And even though Jeremiah was born a long time before there was an Advent or a Christmas, he was a kid just like you and me. He was born into a family where there was love and there was cohesion and people stuck together. But like you and I, the storms of life were raging for Jeremiah. I remember when I was a child, even though we were very safe at home, life was changing outside those doors. I remember turning on the television and seeing freedom riders hosed and dogs turned on them. I remember that the United States was in a Cold War with the USSR. Any of you remember that? And Cuba was not just something to look at. We were afraid that those missiles that were put there would be launched and could come right across that 92-mile space and attack America. So even though we were safe, things were changing around us. We all wanted to be safe. Jeremiah just wanted to be safe. He wanted to be a little boy just a little longer. But God said to him, you have to be my prophet. And you have to tell your elders and the people who are in power around you that they are not living in a God-like manner. What an awesome responsibility to put on a little boy. And so out Jeremiah went to do what God had told him to do. I mean, after all, it was God. So out he went to do it. And people were not nice to Jeremiah. They began to threaten him. And not only threaten him, they threatened his family. And so Jeremiah was in danger, and his whole family was in danger. And this sense of safety that he had grown up in, all of a sudden, it was not to be. And so Jeremiah came back and he said, God, look, this is not working out for me. I am frightened. My mother and father are frightened. My sisters and brothers are frightened. My family is frightened. There is no safety in our lives. But they were not changing their ways. And they were threatening this little boy for having the temerity and courage to speak back to them. And so, as I said before, Jeremiah, in his fear, came to God and said, I am frightened. I cannot do this. And God replied to Jeremiah, Jeremiah, if you have raced with foot runners and they have wearied you, how will you compete with horses? And by that, God meant the horses of Babylon. Because God was prepared to unleash the Babylon overlords on that tiny little country of the Hebrews, and they would be largely decimated. God was saying to Jeremiah, in other words, if people scare you that you know now, Jeremiah, in a world that is already so evil, how will you survive when things become really overwhelming? When I allow the Babylonians on their mighty horses to conquer you and your civilization and all that you have ever known? When your life as you know it is turned upside down and your family is taken away into captivity, and that's exactly what happened. Even though you are a child, Jeremiah, you must now quickly grow up. You must take heart, Jeremiah. You must take hope, Jeremiah. And as a little boy, you have to see things from a different perspective. That is the genesis of hope. That is your only hope. Hope is going through no to yes. We all believe that God is the God of all creation. Amen?
Amen.
I'd like to tell you a dog story. The word astro, my God. The word astro means heavenly bodies. Astro means star. I was in the back of the house when Michael brought Astro home. It was a surprise for my birthday. What a commotion they made when they entered. I could tell what it was when they opened the door. I could tell what was coming through the door. I knew what Michael had done. But in my heart of hearts, I hoped it was a home invasion robbery. I had no hope that we could fit another dog into our lives. I wanted to continue the old ways. You see, my beagle, our beagle Homer, had just died 3 weeks before. I was crying, and I was comfortable crying with no hope. And this new star, this big white dog that burst into our house, and Michael told me, oh, you can change his name if you want to, but his name is Astro. Happy birthday. This dog was too much. He was too big. He was too boisterous. Those big, huge paws, that white fur shedding all over everything. We have a cat. I've never seen the cat swell up that large before. You ever seen a cat engorge? I've never seen the cat look like that. I said, this is really not going to work. So we went to a trainer. And the trainer taught us to see and begin to see Astro through Astro's eyes. A big, hyper-alert puppy who had been rescued on the streets of Van Nuys, probably the victim of a puppy mill, the product of a puppy mill, who was loose for weeks, who was on Kill Row. You know what Kill Row is? Even though he was beautiful, if he had not been rescued, he was going to be put down, I found, within 48 hours. But instead, he was at my house. And if I learned to see Astro through Astro's eyes, he would always show me how much he appreciated us taking him in. If we would not focus on our old lives the way they were, but on our new lives with him. If I was willing to go through no to yes. Once that began to happen, things began to change. Oh, don't get me wrong. He was never easy. Every moment with him was an exercise in dominance. Every day we had to learn again that he was not the boss. Michael fed him, but I was the alpha, and when I walked into the room, Michael would put the dog food down, and Astro would look at the dog food and look at Michael and go, I mean, he was a nut job. But he was loving. He loved my mother. He loved the women who volunteered here at the church, like Annette and Elva. Annette would lie on the floor with him and rub him. Elva would come in the door, our sexton, and the dog would jump off the floor and kiss her in the mouth before she could stop him. And she was like, oh. He loved children unless they were on skateboards. Men, not so much. For some reason, there was something about men that just got all of his dander up. Michael and I were just about the only men he could tolerate. When for 6 months, both my father and Michael's father were terminally ill, and during the time we lost them, when I was flying back and forth between Ohio, I would have to get off the plane and Mike would say, you take him. Out the door, I'd have to go walk him and just sensitize him to who I was and what was going on. And taking care of that dog helped me kind of deal with what was happening to my father. because that dog demanded my attention and demanded that just walking with him would allow me to cry out to the universe about the grief of losing my father. And I thought, wow, what an animal you are. What a hope you are. What a balm in Gilead you are to me. What a panacea you are. But one day, the little boy who lived across the street from us, healthy and happy, Tracy, he loved to play the piano, and he loved to play basketball. What do you think he made me think of? 10 years old, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. There's no cure for that. No matter how healthy you are, you have to learn to live with it. And it sent this little boy into a fit of depression, the likes of which his mother and father, who were separating, had never seen. He stopped playing basketball. He stopped playing the piano. He was given to fits of moodiness, and his mother, even though she was an educator, did not know what to do with her little boy. But the one thing that he loved was to pet Astro, this ferocious, crazy dog. And I'd see them on the street, and he would say, "Bill, can I play with Astro?" And then he would just sit and rub him and rub him and rub him. I was horrified that Astro was going to bite him, but they were fine together. And slowly, over weeks and months, a light came on in this little boy's eyes as he began to see through this animal that he was okay. He was loved. There was love and care and restoration and life for him past this diagnosis. There was a yes for him past this no with which he had been diagnosed. And his mother, who for 2 years said, "You will not have a dog in this house while I draw breath." 2 weeks ago, rescued for Liam a dog. Astro had done a mighty work. Advent, and especially this season of hope, begins, ironically, by talking about the second coming. And scriptures will tell you that the Son of Man will come again like a thief in the night. It is only if we surrender our preconceptions and look at life through the eyes of the Son of Man, who came as a baby but loved us for taking him in. If we are more patient with others because we see through the eyes of a baby God gave us to take in, learning how to talk with each other without so much attitude, without so much impatience, showing appreciation for small things, saying thank you every time somebody does something for us, being quick to forgive, and see through the eyes of others because we see through Christ's little eyes. We will learn, as God told Jeremiah, not only to race with foot soldiers. We will learn to compete with horses, the horses of challenge, no matter how they may come. And we may learn as we go to San Francisco to turn those horses of challenge into steeds of opportunity, the likes of which no one has ever seen before. And if we can do that, and we can, we will learn to soar with God's angels.